Reporting for WHIP News, I'm here with the beautiful Sharron Cooks because you are the first transgender woman ever to chair a city commission. How does that feel right off the bat?
Amazing, an honor and a privilege. There is also a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. So although I am very appreciative for this role, and in this role I will be able to work with a lot of organizations and a lot of community members to affect some positive change in the city of Philadelphia.
Awesome. Now, how did you get the news?
So I got the news via email. There was an internal election that was done with the Mayor's Commission on LGBT Affairs, and my fellow commission members all took a vote, and which was anonymous, and the results came out. There was a couple days that went by, and right before there was a city council event in which March 31st was declared Transgender Visibility Day throughout the city of Philadelphia. So on March 30th, City Council had a resolution that was read on City Council's floor. So I found out right before, the night before that, actually, which was really exciting.
Okay. Who was the first person you told?
The first person I told, well, actually, I didn't tell anyone. Well, no, that's not true. The first person I told was my friend and colleague, Ernest Owens, and he was gracious enough to do a story about that on me. So the big announcement actually happened through Philly magazine, and was released to the public.
All right.
I mean, of course, I told personal friends of mine who are really, really close to me, but have really no connection to the work that I do in the community, and have no connection to the community whatsoever. So I shared it with, my personal family and friends, but the public and the community didn't know until I think it was Friday the 31st, on the day of Transgender Visibility Day.
Wow, what a day to choose.
Exactly.
Okay, and now when do you get to work? Do you even know?
Well, actually, we already have gotten to work. We've had 2 meetings so far. The commission's had 2 meetings. We also had an event. Well, the Office of LGBT Affairs did a Love is Louder pop-up event to counteract a anti-transgender hate bus. So technically, that was like the first event where everyone knew. Me speaking on the floor of City Council the day after I found out was really my first event, and then the event after that would have been Saturday's counter protest against the anti-transgender bus. So I'm already at work.
You talked about a little bit before how this is a very big responsibility for you. What would you say is your paramount concern that you want to make sure you do well in this position?
One of my paramount concerns is just making sure that resources are allocated to the most vulnerable and marginalized individuals in the LGBT community throughout the city of Philadelphia.
Okay, and talking about underserved communities, I know you are the CEO of Making Our Lives Easier, right, LLC?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I am the owner and CEO of Making Our Lives Easier, LLC. We provide quality resources and information to underrepresented communities. We do that through activism, advocacy, community organizing, political advising, and I really like to focus on my efforts on trans women of color, particularly Black trans women, because of my own personal experiences, but anyone who is experiencing underrepresentation or is marginalized in any way. I'm definitely committed to working to get their voice heard and get them proper representation through my organization, Making Our Lives Easier, LLC.
And how long have you had that organization?
I think this is my 6th year.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's my 6th year. So just a little bit of background. I went to Pierce College first, and then I went to community, and I graduated from Arcadia University. But when I was at Pierce, I studied business administration because I knew that I wanted to own my own company. So I started my organization. So originally, my degree is in philosophy with a focus on ethics, but I have an interdisciplinary academics knowledge base. So I took a whole bunch of courses because I wanted to know, in the world that we're living in today with technology and globalization, there's a lot of cross-cultural things. And I just wanted to be aware of them. There are a lot of factors that go into doing community work, activism, and advocacy and community organizing, especially with marginalized communities. So I wanted to make sure that I was well equipped with the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities to be able to serve people in a very effective capacity. So the first 5 years when people start businesses, because people start businesses all the time. So what they say in the business world is once you get past the 5th year, then like that is the period where you start growing, because a lot of people start organizations or businesses and they actually end up collapsing before the 5th year. So I'm very pleased that my organization has been able to survive in the work that I do for the last 5 years, going on 6 years. So yeah, I'm looking forward to building on my brand as the years come along.
You said there's a focus specifically for trans women of color, even more specifically trans Black women.
Yeah.
Is there anything that is very unique to that experience as someone of that community?
There are things that are very unique. For example, most trans people, just in the trans community, period, most of us are living below, the poverty line, which is $10,000 a year, particularly because of the racial disparities and these systems of oppression that we have and this system of white supremacy we have here in America. So one is already marginalized because of their gender, and then being Black on top of that, that further marginalizes them. So as a Black trans woman, I am deeply concerned about my safety as far as violence is concerned. This year alone, we've had 8 trans women of color die. I think one of them was Native American. The rest of them were Black.
Are you talking United States or Philadelphia?
In the United States.
Okay.
So, violence against trans women of color, particularly Black ones, is something that I'm very, very passionate about. Something that I have always tried to get a lot of support around. Black trans women of color do not get the same type of political support, the same type of financial support, the same type of social support, or the same type of media coverage as non-trans people do, or other individuals in the LGBT community.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that is my particular focus, because Black transgender women are very marginalized. And I've experienced that myself as well. So when I have the opportunity to have a workshop or a lecture or a speaking engagement, I always try to bring a lot of those issues to the forefront.
And how do you feel about Philadelphia's relationship to their trans community?
That's a complex question. So I want to first start by saying that we here in Philadelphia have a lot of ordinances and protections for the LGBT community in housing, in public accommodations, in employment. We have been named dubbed, I should say, the most LGBT-friendly city in the United States. Some people might want to argue that point, but I've heard it said several times. So that is one thing that I'm very happy and appreciative of, is that we have very progressive leadership here in Philadelphia that recognizes that people in the trans community need comprehensive laws that protect them. I'm very thankful for. Now, on the other side of that, it's one thing to have a law or an ordinance on the books. It's something completely different. The enforcement of those policies and those laws looks very different. And I know that there are certain areas like Center City where they're a little bit more LGBT friendly because there's the neighborhood down there. But I live in Logan, North Philadelphia. We're here at Temple. There is a large LGBT community all over the city of Philadelphia, but in other parts of Philadelphia are not quite as safe. And then there are institutions that are around the city of Philadelphia that I think could use some trans competency training.
As far as enforcement goes, is that one of your priorities as chair?
I don't want to I don't want to speak on that specifically in my role as chair. There's a lot of protocol that, since I'm new to this role, there's a lot of protocol that I have to adhere to. So I will say, as a community member and as a business owner in the city of Philadelphia, and in some of the other roles that I hold besides being the chair of the Mayor's Commission on LGBT Affairs, I definitely want to look at what that looks like, what the application of those ordinances and practices are. I am hopefully going to be going to school in the fall to get my master's degree in public policy. So part of what I want to do with that is look at when these ordinances are passed, when these laws are passed, and protections for trans people, LGBTQ people, not just here in Philadelphia, but other places too. What does that, what does the enforcement or the application of those policies look like? And what is the consequence when those policies and those laws are not necessarily followed?
Was political engagement always a part of the plan for you, or did that just happen?
No, that just happened. That just happened. The stars aligned, and I'm a big being a person who is a philosopher. I believe in metaphysics, and I believe in energy, and I hold the belief that when you stand by your values and what's right, the universe will present opportunities for you to reach your full potential. So the universe obviously felt that, being political in some aspects of my life would suit me well. And thus, the universe presented an opportunity for me to get involved. I would like to say as well, part of, in my role as a consultant and an advocate for Making Our Lives Easier LLC, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what their laws are. Not their laws are. Well, yes, I want to make sure that people are aware what the laws are in their area and, what their rights are and what they can do in case any of those are violated. I think that's really important.
Last question. Pretty simple for you, I
Sure.
hope. What is one misconception about trans women, specifically trans women of color, that you wish would just go away?
There's so many. How can I narrow it down to one? Let's see. I think one of the largest things that is a huge misconception, and I'm speaking from my perspective, I'm not speaking for a whole community. What I would like all the listeners out there to remember is that everyone, regardless of whether they're trans-identified or not, has a different experience, and people see life through the lens in which they experience it. So for me, one of the biggest misconceptions is that trans women are somehow deceptive. A lot of people, and this comes from whenever there is a death of a transgender woman in, the media, the first thing people think is that, she must have been, she didn't disclose her, trans identity. And that could be further from the truth. Some time ago, maybe 10 years ago, that may have well been the case, and that may have well been the narrative. But that is not the case today. A lot of trans women are actually being murdered by people who have been intimate partners of theirs. So that is an issue. I think if we lift the stigmas around trans-identified individuals, and if we lift those stigmas, then the stigma around people who love us and care about us will also be lifted. And I think that will help reduce the levels of violence. So if we start just chipping away at that misconception that transgender women are being deceptive or not disclosing their gender identity. It is solely up to an individual what information, and this goes across the board. It's solely up to an individual to decide what parts of their life they want to disclose to someone and when they want to do that. And everyone has a varying approach to doing that. So that is one of the things that one of the misconceptions and narratives that I would definitely like to see stopped.
I'm essentially done with all of my questions. Is there anything else that you specifically want to get off your chest while this interview is about to end?
Just a few things. There's been a lot that's been going on in Philadelphia, I'm sure you know. We have new LGBTQ leadership.
Yes, the LGBT Commission as a whole.
Yes. And the Office of LGBT Affairs.
The new director, Amber Hikes, right?
Correct. We still have these issues of racism that we need to deal with in the LGBT community. I think people nowadays, well, before I say that, I will say I believe during President Obama's administration that everybody kind of thought race kind of just went away, or the racial issues between people kind of just went away here in America. I personally know that they have not, and that is evident now that, we have a Trump administration. So, I just want people to understand that racism is a huge issue, not just in non-LGBTQ spaces, but LGBTQ spaces as well.
Okay. Yeah, that was Sharron Cooks, the official new chair of the Mayoral Commission of LGBT Affairs. Thank you so much for being on with me
Thank
today.
you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And reporting for WHIP News, I'm Taylor Allen.